News from the President of the United States that there has been an attack inside Iran. We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you.
A war of aggression launched with no clear provocation, just a vague warning about weapons of mass destruction, no proof, no evidence, just fear. I wonder where we've seen this before, only this time the names are different, and the consequences might be worse. But the truth is, even though the war is turning hot now, it was declared a long time ago. It began on the very day Donald Trump was sworn in as president, when he stood before the world and declared that America would, quote, follow its manifest destiny into the stars. That wasn't just empty rhetoric. Manifest destiny isn't just some poetic phrase. It's a doctrine, a justification for conquest. It's the idea that this country is entitled by God to expand, to dominate, and to control. Trump may not know what those words mean, but the people around him do. And they chose those words for a reason. They were sending a signal. America doesn't want to lead the world, it wants to rule it. In the last World War, we were the ones who stood up to fascism. We were the liberators, the ones who helped build a new world order based on law, cooperation, and peace. But now, we're the country where the fascist authoritarians openly seek power, where contempt for democracy and the rule of law is no longer hidden, it's celebrated. And now those same forces are preparing to inflict brute force across the globe, to violate international law, to demand imperial concessions from anyone who won't bow, friend or foe. That's the story here. You saw it early on if you were paying attention. Trump floating his ideas to annex Greenland and Canada, seize the Panama Canal. It wasn't policy, it was posture. America under Trump wasn't interested in treating other countries with even basic respect. As far as Trump and his team were concerned, other nations existed for one reason: to serve America's interests, no matter the cost to their people, their economy, or their sovereignty. Then came the tariffs, not as a tool of negotiation, but as a tool of punishment, a global shakedown operation designed to force other countries into line. Not with tanks, not with bombs, but with pressure, coercion, and threats. World War III isn't coming. It's already here. It won't look like the last two. It won't start with a single invasion or on a single day. It's been unfolding, slowly, globally, and violently, in everything but name. And this time, we are not the hero. We're the villain, and the world knows it, even if most Americans still don't. So much of the propaganda that sustains American empire around the world comes from the story we've told ourselves about the last World War. If you were born and raised in this country, you know the script by heart. World War II was a titanic fight between good and evil, and America heroically answered the call. We stormed the beaches, we liberated the camps, we defeated the Nazis, and we saved the world. That story has been the moral foundation of American power for the last 80 years. It's the myth that makes every war America fights sound righteous. In that story, we're always the good guys, and whoever we're fighting is evil by definition. No context, no complexity, just heroes and villains. That's how the narrative works. That's how the empire justifies itself. We fight for freedom, for truth, for democracy. And if anyone resists us, it's not just because they're wrong, it's because they hate freedom, or they hate truth, or they hate God. That's the ideological machine we built. And after World War II, we got very good at using it. The Cold War made it even easier. Now the villain wasn't Hitler, it was the communists, the godless empire, the red threat. Wherever we went, Korea, Guatemala, Vietnam, Chile, we always said we were fighting for democracy, even when we were installing dictators, even when we were overthrowing democratically elected leaders, or firebombing civilians. We called it freedom. We said we were saving people from tyranny while back home, Black Americans were being beaten and killed just for trying to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Still, the narrative held until Iraq. After 9/11, the government didn't just have fear, it had an opportunity. What it needed was a new enemy, a new evil to direct all that fear at. So they created one. They said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. They said Saddam was linked to Al-Qaeda and that if we didn't act, another 9/11 was coming. It was all a lie, but it worked, at least for a while. We invaded, we killed hundreds of thousands of people, and when the truth finally caught up, it was too late. For an entire generation of Americans, that was the first time they saw the mask fall off. The first time they realized that America doesn't always fight for peace, that sometimes America is the thing people need defending from. And now it's happening again. A new generation is watching what's happening in the Middle East, what's being done in our name, and they're starting to wake up. The pattern is familiar. A foreign people painted as evil, a vague, unprovable threat, a war of aggression justified by fear, and America once again claiming the moral high ground while burying the truth. For decades, this was the pattern. America lied and the rest of the world paid the price. That was the old formula. Cloaked domination in the language of freedom. But that changed with Trump. What makes this moment different is that Trump has stripped the story away. No more pretending, no more excuses, just raw power on display. Unapologetic and proud of it. For decades, US presidents at least felt the need to justify American aggression in the language of law, democracy, and peace. They lied, yes, but they lied because they felt they had to. Trump never felt that obligation. His message was blunt. We're America. We do what we want. And if the rest of the world doesn't like it, tough. That posture, defiant, aggressive, and unapologetic, won him 2 presidential elections. In the last World War, America fought the far-right authoritarian threat. We went to war against fascism. But this time around, we elected it. We handed power to ultranationalists who openly disregard the rule of law, dismantle democratic institutions, and attack the very institutions meant to keep power in check. The disrespect Trump and his supporters show toward our own laws and institutions don't stop at the border. It extends outward to the global system we helped build after the last World War. At the end of World War II, America helped design a global system meant to prevent another major global conflict. Institutions were created. Rules were written. The point was simple. No nation, no matter how powerful, should be above the law. Peace would depend not on strength, but on restraint. We said never again. Never again to genocide. Never again to aggressive war. Never again to lawless power. That's how we got the United Nations and the Geneva Conventions and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The foundation of all of it was that power had to be bound by principle, because when strong nations ignore the rules, when they decide the rules don't apply to them, that's when the whole system collapses. That's exactly why the League of Nations failed. It was the first attempt to build a system of global cooperation founded after World War I, with the hope that diplomacy and international law could prevent another catastrophe. But it only worked on paper. When Imperial Japan invaded China, when Fascist Italy invaded Ethiopia, when Nazi Germany tore through Europe, there were no consequences. The League had no enforcement power, no military, no credibility. The powerful ignored the rules, and the powerless paid the price. That breakdown, that failure of the world to act when it mattered most, led directly to the last World War. And the global order that followed, the one America helped build, was supposed to make sure that never happened again. But now, the nation that once built the rules and claimed the right to enforce them is the one breaking them most consistently and most brazenly. America doesn't just ignore international law, we violate it openly. We shield our allies from accountability while punishing our enemies for doing far less. We invade, we assassinate, we occupy, and we still call ourselves the guardians of peace and order. This is what empire looks like at the end. The rules are for everyone else except yourself. We do what we want, and if you don't like it, tough. But the rest of the world isn't just sitting back and taking it. They're resisting, not always with bombs or bullets, but with something stronger, defiance. One of the clearest examples came during Trump's trade war. It didn't involve tanks or soldiers, but it was a battlefield all the same. And the way the world responded said everything about the new role America was playing. Trump's trade war isn't about protecting American workers. It's economic imperialism, plain and simple. Tariffs aren't being used as a tool of negotiation, they're being used as a weapon. They are designed to take us back to a world where America called the shots and everyone else had to fall in line. It was a blatant act of aggression targeting friend and foe alike. The goal was to force other countries to bend the knee, to remind the world who was in charge. But the world didn't bend, it pushed back. And in one of the clearest signs of resistance, 3 historic rivals, China, Japan, and South Korea, came together. That may not seem remarkable at first, but if you know the history, it's extraordinary. Japan brutally occupied both China and Korea in the last World War. To this day, the scars are still visible. Territorial disputes, diplomatic tensions, and deep cultural resentment. China and South Korea have their own complex relationship shaped by regional rivalry and suspicion. Simply put, these countries don't trust or like one another. And yet, in the face of Trump's tariffs, they began working together. Why? Because Trump had done something no one else could do. He united them, not in friendship, not in alliance, but in shared defiance of American domination. When three nations with that much historical animosity decide you are a bigger threat, that tells you everything you need to know about how far America has fallen in the eyes of the world. Acts of national resistance weren't limited to Asia either. Canada saw the threat too and recognized it for what it was. Trump publicly suggested taking over Canada, not in some war room fantasy, but as a real proposition to turn our northern neighbor into the 51st state, whether they wanted to be or not. He said this about a sovereign nation of over 40 million people, and more than that, one of America's oldest and most loyal allies. For decades, Canada stood by the US in war, in diplomacy, even when we were wrong. And their reward for that loyalty was the threat of a hostile takeover, showing that nothing and no one was off limits in the new world order that Trump's America was trying to create. It was imperialism without a mask, and straight out of the fascist playbook America once claimed to oppose. Annex your neighbors, expand your borders, and crush the weak. But Canada didn't flinch. They saw Trump's politics for what they were, and they responded in kind. They elected a liberal government in open defiance of Trump's politics. It was a clear message. We don't want to be part of your empire, and we will fight, politically, economically, diplomatically, to stay free of it. And now, the latest country to resist the American empire is Iran. And once again, America is trying to sell the world a familiar story. They want us to believe that Iran, not America or its regional proxies, is the true threat to peace, the destabilizing force, the aggressor, the danger to the world. But here are the facts. Iran has not attacked another country in over 200 years. Iran has signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran allows international inspectors to monitor its nuclear program and to confirm it is in compliance with international law. That is the record. Now compare that to America's proxy in the Middle East. There is only one country in the region that actually has nuclear weapons. Not just a few, it holds the highest number of warheads per capita in the world. It has never signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It has never allowed weapons inspectors in to see its program. Its nuclear program is entirely unregulated, entirely unaccountable, and entirely backed by the United States. That same country is currently led by a man wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. And in just the past week, he has bombed 4 neighboring countries unprovoked, unapproved, and in direct violation of international law. All of that in addition to a steady stream of war crimes being committed daily within the borders of that country itself. Now, through the same proxy, America has launched an unprovoked war of aggression against Iran. And we're doing it with the exact same script we used 20 years ago in Iraq. An invisible threat, a vague reference to weapons of mass destruction, a preemptive strike against a country that hasn't attacked anyone, and we're supposed to believe that we're the ones telling the truth this time, that we're the defenders of order, that the greatest threat to peace is not the empire violating every international norm, but the country trying to resist it? Don't be fooled. This war may be coming through America's proxy in the Middle East, but make no mistake, it's coming from America. There is simply no way this country would have risked launching a deadly regional war unless they were confident that the US would back them up if and when things got tough. And we are. And we're doing exactly that. A lot of people misunderstand our relationship with this proxy. They think that we're weak, that we can't control them, that they're the ones calling the shots. But that couldn't be further from the truth. America isn't helpless. America is complicit. We use this proxy to do indirectly what we can't do directly, for political reasons, for diplomatic cover, and most of all to avoid the backlash of sending American troops into yet another Middle Eastern war. And it's a perfect setup. They fight our enemies, they take the heat, they risk their own soldiers, and all they ask is that we keep the money, weapons, and intelligence flowing. We do the funding, and they do the bombing. And when things go wrong, when the war crimes pile up, when the region explodes or civilians die, America gets to play innocent. We can say, we didn't approve that. We didn't know. They acted on their own. It's all part of the strategy. Keep your hands clean and let someone else do the dirty work. And if it all blows up, just point to your proxy and walk away. This is how empires wage war without accountability. They outsource the violence, then deny the responsibility. But the consequences are still real, and the stakes this time are even higher. What makes this moment different from the last World War is terrifying in its simplicity. Back then, there was a villain, Germany, and there was a flawed but dependable force that rose up to stop it, America. But this time, we are the villain, and that raises the question, who saves the world from America? Because there is no more powerful nation coming. There is no foreign army strong enough to intervene. America is the apex predator on the global stage. And when the most powerful country on earth no longer respects international law, no longer listens to its people, and no longer hides its hunger for domination, then no one is safe. The first step is already underway. Countries around the world are beginning to band together, not to follow American leadership, but to resist American power. They've seen what we've become, but global resistance won't be enough. The only people who can truly stop America's war machine are the American people themselves. Because this government does not speak for us. It doesn't represent our values. It doesn't serve our communities. It does not reflect the hopes of ordinary Americans who want nothing more than peace, dignity, and a decent life for themselves and their families. If we want a future, any future at all, it won't come from the White House. It won't come from Congress. It certainly won't come from the Pentagon. It will come from the people themselves, from Americans willing to rise up and take back control of their government before it plunges the world into something that no one can undo. We've stopped fascism once. Now we have to stop it again. But this time, the danger is coming from within.